Hey guys, welcome to the Solar Slang Podcast. This podcast was made possible by A to Z Solar Services located here in Mandeville, Louisiana. My name is Laith Hashemi.
I'm Mike McDonald, perovskite.
And today we're going to talk about perovskite and many other interesting topics, just to kind of give you guys a quick
overview
of what we're going to be talking about today. Solar power increasing its efficiency once again as Oxford continues its research on PV skit cells.
Perovskite.
ADT Solar closing up shop, another big thing that's happening. It's going to impact our market in many, many ways.
Right.
And then also FEMA incorporating net zero program into a disaster response that they are providing over the next few years.
Super cool.
Yeah, so stay tuned, guys, to hear about some of these topics. I think the first thing we're going to hit on today is going to be the new solar cells that Oxford,
Perovskite,
which is a spin off of Oxford University in the UK, have been doing research, which is Oxford PV, and they've been doing research on these cells. Mike, you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, Oxford PV is a company. It kind of sounds like it's a university, but it's a company started by a dude from Oxford, the university. It's not like a university. It's like a part of a university. Anyway, that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't have anything to do with it. But yeah, this perovskite, this silicone perovskite, I think these have been around for a while, but they have never been able to commercially compete with the more traditional monosilicon cells that we know now with the typical doping that happens, whether it's boron or whatever it is that's added to it. Perovskite's always been in the background a little bit, but they've reached, in real world conditions, they've reached up to 25%, and then they're predicted to be, I believe, at 24% with these modules that the specific Oxford PV is going to produce. I think they're going to be producing them in Germany, I believe, or something like that. And yeah, this could be a game changer because just based on what I knew about it, a little bit I know about it, that perovskite, I believe, is already in fuel cells and other things. So this is a readily available material. So this should be a game changer in the way that it should make panels cheaper with the same efficiency. Because typically to get that good, really good efficiency, you're going to need a premium panel. Well, if they can turn out panels with this type of materials, then we'd probably be looking at cheaper panels for everybody, which is a really good thing to hear. Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do.
Yeah, as the research continues, it seems like it's just got cheaper and cheaper over time, and this is just an add-on to that they can produce these cells or massively produce these cells with a readily available material like perovskite and be able to produce it in a commercial market to where it's available for homeowners and these large plants going up. And I think what they did was they reached 25% efficiency per meter squared in comparison to the previous record, which was 24%, which is a pretty large jump there.
Right. Yeah. In a short amount of time for that type of efficiency, usually that would take years, no matter if we're talking about motor efficiency or silicone efficiency or whatever. It usually takes the science grinding its wheels for a little while before you make those jumps. You're looking at tenths of a percentage point, and for it to jump that quick, that fast is it tells you something about the efficiency of it, how good it is, how it has its place, obviously.
Well, yeah, the U.S. isn't the only ones that's been investing time and money into renewable energy sector, especially specifically photovoltaics, PV. And as all these countries start pushing all this money into it and they see how efficient it can be, they're going to have laboratories all over the world really pushing to see who can get the most efficient cell,
Right.
And over time, we've seen it just quadruple over the last decade of exactly what's been produced. And,
for sure. Yeah. I'll tell you what really Gillie's my goat about it. I just made that up. So is that whenever in the solar world, I love how they are continuously working on it. They're like, how can we make this better? How can we make this better? Because the scientific community, they're all about testing each other. Somebody makes a claim. Somebody's like, well, let me try to do it and see if we can do it, and we can replicate it. And then we set standards. And I love to hear stuff like this with PV because they're constantly working on it, making better and better and better and better. And yeah, they're actually getting somewhere. They're not just spinning their wheels. They're actually getting better efficiency and making it more available for people.
Let's step back for a second. Did
No,
you
let's
say,
not.
did
Don't.
you
Let's
say
do it.
Gillie your goat about
Yeah,
it? Is that
yeah.
how do you Gillie somebody's goat exactly?
So first you got to know what you got to get some Gillie. And then you got to get a goat. You got to be really to make a goat happy. It's not just going to be conventional.
That's Gillie in it. That's what Gillie means, is make it happy.
You can't just talk to it. You can't be like nice to it. It's very specific.
Okay, moving on. We can move on from that. I was just wondering.
Yeah, anyways.
But,
don't ever bring that up.
So, yeah, that's great, man. And Oxford's been a prestigious university that all kind of great scientific breakthroughs have came from, and they just continue to hold their reputation with that, and that's awesome. I hope we see that reduce the cost here in the U.S. and get that, that gets rolled over to the homeowner so that they can save some money, and this industry gets just cheaper and cheaper and more efficient and more efficient.
Yeah, it's really good stuff. And the fact that they never stop working with this idea that you can take packets of light energy and turn it into energy, the fact that they're not just settling that and saying, hey, let's only do it like this, the fact that they're always changing it, always coming up with a better way to do it, it tells you a lot about how the scientific community feels about this. So, like, that this is super viable, and you have to give people options. It's neat that there'll be multiple chemical structures to the type of panels that you get, and it'll just give people more options, and hopefully that in and of itself will drive production. More options.
And we were kind of doing a little research earlier, and we noticed, what was it? It was like 50% efficiency on a single cell in standard test laboratory conditions, and I believe that's just a pure silicon cell.
Yeah, and it's also under, I think when we go to the real world conditions, we talk about, like what you said earlier, about meters squared, meaning that they use test conditions under a
certain amount of irradiance.
Yeah, under a certain amount of irradiance that is replicated, which is a replica of what you would get. The STC is what you would get at the equator.
Standard test conditions.
Yeah, what you would get at the equator with 1,000 watts per meter squared. Now, this is a perfect day, right? And this is at the equator, meaning the sun is directly overhead. And so they recreate that scenario to give us a real world scenario based on coefficient, so the temperature that it's in. Now, what you're referring to with this 45% or 49%, the milestone, they use and they replicate one sun is what they call it, which is similar to the standard test conditions, like a 1,000 watts per square meter falling in an area. But that is in a laboratory. That is excluding temperature coefficients, the losses that you're going to get from that. That's actually excluding drawing current over these things. So you can get a motor or anything really efficient until you try to pull some power from it. Then you're going to see that efficiency drop. Or when you assemble it in a modular form, you're going to have your drop of efficiency across a bunch of modules. So one singular cell doing that is very impressive, but obviously we're a long way from it transferring into an actual product, getting close to that.
Yeah. A quote from Mr. David Ward, the CEO of Oxford PV, says, "This new world record is a crucial milestone for Oxford PV, providing that our tandem solar cells can deliver record-breaking performance when assembled into solar panels." So, yeah, like you were saying, that's with it being assembled into an actual panel with multiple cells in line with each other. So
because that's where your efficiency really means something. It's like a lot of stuff in a laboratory condition or in a vacuum is incredible, but it's the moment that we try to actually use it, we see those inefficiencies add up across, the electrical characteristics, and then so the real world. Right now, if you were going to go in the world and you're going to buy the most efficient PV module you can get, like what are we talking about right here? But in today's world, the best one that you can get your hands on is at about 22.6, 22.8 efficiency. So, yeah, to see these things and these different types of panels coming around and getting us closer to that 30% efficiency mark, which I think that probably by 2030, hopefully we'll be there. Yeah. This makes a big difference. If you think about that, you need less roof space, you need less panels. It'll not just the efficiency of the cell itself, but the efficiency of the install and the life of the system. So, Yeah, it's a big deal for sure.
Well, let's look at some of the panels that we were looking up earlier that's running, that's readily available at this very moment in the market. That would be SunPower being number one. And I think you said they're at like 20.
That's the 22.8, I believe. 22. The SunPower is the premium commercial grade panel. Then right under that is REC, which is kind of surprising if you're familiar with the solar world. It's a premium.
And this is a
model.
reference, I believe. What was that? Energy Sage? Is that?
Yeah, this is an Energy Sage thing, which basically we use a lot in our world because it's just they don't have really any manufacturer behind them per se. They can kind of stay. They're not preferential to one company or another. They actually look at all the modules. It's REC. Then I believe it is Evervolt, Panasonic, next. At I think 22%. I think REC is 22.4 or something like that, and then it's Panasonic, and then I believe Silfab is on that list, which is probably the most affordable on that list at about 21%. So,
and at that time, we're going to have a quick word from our sponsor.
Oh, today we are sponsored by the Gillie Goat, the happiest goat in town. All he does is sit around. He's the happy goat. He's the one with the milk. He's the one with the cheese. The Gillie Goat on Highway 59. Thank you.
And back to solar slang.
Here we go. All right, so another subject is something that came up recently is ADT Solar, which we know and love as SunPro.
Yeah.
Who that's our familiarity. These guys were like right in our backyard when they started, like literally. And
I used to work for them.
Yeah, and then they were bought out by SunPro was bought out by ADT, and this was a big purchase. This guy that started this company did very well. He made his corporate model. He was bought out by a bigger company. It all looked really good and well until you found out. We just found out recently that it is gone. It is no longer. They are wrapping up shop. ADT acquired them for millions of dollars, and then now is saying, hey, no, we want out of this. And they are wrapping it up.
This isn't a first time that this has happened as far as the alarm companies getting involved in solar and then going out of business. I think one of the main things we've been dealing with lately was a off-spin of Vivint, and Alternative Solar was a large company that also left a lot of people high and dry. But unlike the Vivint line of customers, ADT is claiming to hold their warranties and make sure that all of their systems that started install do get to completion. Unlike some other companies that left people high and dry, they did hold the name ADT Solar.
Right. Well, so I will say this: what I read about that, and when you initially, I think, told me about this, and then I went and did a little bit of research in it. This was like a week and a half ago. And that article that you were referencing, you're saying, hey, they're going to hold their warranty. They guarantee the warranties on the panels so that you can call them and get all your stuff replaced. But in that article, and I could try to find it again, it didn't specifically say, hey, we're going to finish the ones we already have out there. It said we're going to guarantee our warranties on things that already exist, on products. So does that mean that they're going to go out and finish all those contracts, or they're not going to outsource it and hire somebody else to finish it? If you get rid of everything and you don't have the workforce, I simply don't know how they would do that if they had a bunch of contractors. Now, I can understand them warrantying a module if a customer calls with a product or something and say, hey, yeah, we'll guarantee that. We'll help you with the warranty process, getting you a new one. But now, as far as finishing all the stuff they started, I don't know. That's going to be pretty hard when they've shut down their ability to do it. So
yeah.
I honestly don't believe that it's even related to the products. I don't think that they're going to be able to pull that off. I don't think they're going to be able to pull off a warranty claim. I think you're going to have a lot of upset people.
Yeah,
soon.
I agree. And it sucks that it's happening right as we're start making record-breaking efficiency steps and that type of thing.
Yeah.
So hopefully it was in their best interest. A quote from the CEO of ADT Solar, and it used to be Mark Jones was the CEO of SunPro, but now once it was sold out to ADT Solar, it went into the hands of Jim DeVries, I believe his name is, and he says the decision to exit solar operations was made after careful deliberation, and we expect this strategic action to drive substantial operations and financial benefits to ADT. They're trying to take their alarm business or their security business. They're trying to save it from going under.
Right.
Because they invested into this residential solar market and it did not go well.
Yeah, so that's their first and main priority, I would imagine, because that's the girl that they came to the dance with, you know what I mean? They're not trying to leave with solar. They tried to reshape themselves a little bit, and they quickly realized, oh, this is not like alarms. Not to say that those guys don't know what they're doing, but this is a completely different industry. And, I don't think that they maybe thought about what it meant to have all these guys be cross-trainers and be alarm dudes and solar dudes. No, not going to happen. And then, so what's going to happen? Both your alarms and your solar is going to suffer because you got a guy that's trying to do too much. And I just don't see it. I'm sure that it's not that simple. I'm sure they had a completely separate division where they're only solar guys and whatever. But as soon as ADT realized that their main bread and butter, alarms and money, was coming from that to support this other leg of what they were doing, they were like, we're out. Because their alarm shit's been working for a long time. And they're making money like that, for many decades. So, yeah, and I think they were naive. And when they acquired SunPro, word about them is they had a very set way that they did things. They only installed in-phase systems, pretty good system. They only did certain couple of types of modules. Now, so they set a little packet together and a little program, which basically would, simplify the installation, make it quicker, make it cheaper for everybody.
Streamline it, yeah.
Streamline the situation. But here's the problem with this, related to the first thing that you talked about with new modules. You can't just make a set pattern and say, hey, we're always going to do it like this. You have to change and adapt with this stuff to offer the best stuff, to offer better installs, to offer new batteries. So if you get caught up in the streamlined process because it's easy for you, well, you might get left behind because you have to change and adapt. And you have to be able to, answer new questions with this. There's new stuff coming out. And I think they probably took SunPro's model that worked for a little while, and then new stuff came around. And it's just like, hey, you got to mess with everything. You got to mess with Solarks. You got to mess with, Tesla walls. You got to mess with all of it. And I think they were just so narrow in the way they were doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think being able to design a system for your customer's specific needs is a big part of doing solar. Right. It's never the same. And we kind of went over this with another company that was looking to acquire our business not long ago, where they said, and I guess where they kind of went south, and you've pointed this out before, is where they're like, oh, yeah, solar's going to be like Amazon purchase one day, and they just come in and install it. It's like, no, it's not.
It's not how it works.
You need somebody that is...
You need a qualified person that's going to... If somebody's going to drop that kind of money on something, this isn't just a product you purchase. It's a lot of money, and then people want to feel safe about it. They also want to feel like, should I need somebody to come over here and work on it, that guy is kind of close to me. So this whole national model, and you'll buy it and you won't really have anybody on spot to talk about it. It's crazy. It's not how it's going to be. Those guys that tried to acquire us were saying, yeah, well, like washing machines or refrigerators. And but the moment, you can just go to Lowe's and click one purchase and get that on Amazon and get it here. But what happens if something went wrong with it? Now, we're talking about washing machines and refrigerators, not that big of a deal. Now let's talk about a $45,000, $50,000 system.
$100,000.
$150,000. $150,000 with batteries and everything. Yeah. You're not just gonna pop it in and pop it out.
Reconstructing your whole energy grid with some of these systems. We just did a job the other day, a Solark system. It's working pretty well so far. And this guy's whole 200 amp service is being passed through that Solark. Now, when we installed it, we had to design the system for his certain scenario. Since he was passing his whole system through, we needed to add a transfer switch to be able to bypass the solar if needed to be worked on in a safe environment. You know. We did it absolutely correct. I feel like we went above and beyond. He spent a little extra money, but was it done correct? Yes. Is there going to be any safety hazards in the future? I hope not, but if there is, we can work around it with our bypasses
Right,
and our
right,
disconnects. And,
right.
It takes a lot of designing. It takes an expert that's been in this industry for a long time. I'm not the expert. Mike here's the expert. So we have him.
I don't know about that.
But yeah, so it does takes a lot more than just the Amazon click to make these systems work.
Right.
You have to go do a complete analysis of somebody's situation before you say, hey, I'm going to go in phase, which is a manufacturer, or Solarc, or this guy's too far from any cell towers, so their cellular cards aren't going to work very well out here.
Right.
You have to absolutely understand the scenario you're walking into,
Right.
Depending on the
Site analysis, which is just a critical first step in any solar guys thing. You walk on that site, you feel that sun, you get out there and you do it. I'm all about it. What's crazy is those guys lost me at that point where they said, they were talking to us like, hey, y'all could install for us, we could own you, we could help you, we can give you money and all that. But at that point where they said, hey, because I'm all about
keeping it small.
But also on the other hand, to play devil's advocate here for a second, if you commodify and capitalize in the capitalistic system we live in, that would lower the price of it. That would make it more available for more people. Because if you did have something like that per se, and that did take off, all that's going to do is make the people that make it more money, the panels, so it should make it cheaper for everybody else. But at the point where the customer actually doesn't get a good product, that'll only work for a couple of years, and then it's going to be like everybody hates it because nobody understands what's going on. It's really insane. You keep seeing these people come in from outside, these corporate people and these business people. They're like, well, this is a good money. I could show you on paper where it saves money, and they just come in and set up a business model and say, well, yeah, let's just do it. But no, it's not that simple. It's just simply not that simple. You have to actually make it something that people believe in, which is kind of cheesy to say, but they actually have to believe in it. And I'm not talking about greening up the world or saving the world. I'm talking about the same way you believe that your toaster works when you push the button down. That it gets hot and it heats. People need to really understand that that's a simplified way of saying it. But
yeah.
You actually have to make them feel warm and fuzzy about it and that they understand it. It's a new technology. It's brand new. And just throw out the idea of saving the world or anything like that, or whatever someone's motives is for getting it. You still need to understand it's a new technology, and it takes a deeper understanding. It's not just a thing you go buy.
Well, what kind of gets me, and it's kind of hard to transition from. It's like right at the point where we started hitting lead acid, and we were like, okay, these systems are reliable. They pick up every single time, no questions. Just like that toaster you were talking about. You press that button, it's going to turn on. That power goes out. Those lead acids are going to pick up. Then we transition over to lithium, and we start seeing these AC battery packs and DC batteries that are lithium as well. But then we go across more issues with that. So we start transitioning into this new industry of lithium, and we see a lot of these systems not picking up like they should. But just like anything, just like the lead acid, I'm sure at first, I wasn't around when lead acid first came out. I think that was like the dinosaur ages.
Well, way back in the day, but as far as incorporating it into solar, when you see the use of absorbed glass mat batteries with lead-based batteries, and you see the solar world start incorporating all these things. Yeah, as soon as we get used to that and we're good with that, lithium comes out. As soon as we get used to lithium or something else is going to come out.
Yeah.
And it's because those companies are trying to make these things approachable, easy to understand, a one-stop shop kind of situation where, hey, look, the charge controller and all the things in the battery already. You don't need all these separate components. And it's an effort to simplify it and streamline it, which is a good word. That they're always looking to streamline it, and we are too. But at the point where
the quality of work gets affected,
quality of work drops, and then the person, really the customer or the installer or
safety,
people at large, at the point where their understanding of it starts to wane, doesn't matter how good it's going to do. We need people to understand that this is a new thing that's not going anywhere. You gotta educate yourself on it and stay on it. Yeah, it's kind of rough. It's constantly changing. I'm sure there's a lot of solar dudes or anybody that's looking into it like, whoa, there's a shit ton of information on this, And there's so many.
You got to read the whole book.
You got to do the whole thing, and that's where dudes like us hopefully come in. And we're not here to take advantage of you. We're here to make you understand this new technology that's, we're trying to bring in the Jetsons world. You know what I mean? We're not going to get there if everybody doesn't go there together, So anyway, I could ramble on forever about that.
Yeah, one of our last topics that we're going to kind of hit on, can you believe FEMA is starting to incorporate solar into their infrastructure of rebuilding disaster-stricken areas? Is that crazy or what?
Yeah, I think that goes to everything that we were just talking about again, about the products becoming more reliable, more streamlined. Again, keep saying that word. If they see the viability of it and the government sees the viability of it and the ability to offer in a disaster scenario, offer a clean source of power. Now, I'm not saying clean related to climate change or carbon footprint. I'm talking about clean, like you're not breathing in exhaust when you're trying to help people with a generator. That's better. Yeah. You know what I mean? Actually just clean, like not dirty. Yeah, perovskite, exactly. So it's like if you FEMA saw this opportunity, like, wait a minute, doesn't make noise, doesn't have exhaust, we're getting to a place where it's cheaper to produce power like this. Yeah, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, well, out of the article that Solar Power World produced, it said for the first time, FEMA will fund net zero energy projects, including solar, through its public assistance grant program, which covers rebuilding schools, hospitals, fire stations, and other community infrastructure investments post-disaster. FEMA is also funding net zero energy projects for its hazard mitigation grant program and now offers incentives through its building resilient infrastructure and communities annual grant program to encourage more communities to use the net zero projects that increase community resilience. And that's awesome. That's amazing that they're putting it into the public system, the school system, the fire protections program.
Right. Yeah. Think about it. It's just a smart business move. If there's a technology out there, again, excluding any kind of political reasons or any reasons why you would do it. But just if you would look out there and say, hey, there's a technology out there that can shore up these communities where I have to go, FEMA, I have to go clean up shit if something goes wrong or something's bad. And if they do this can make it less of a disaster by these people in these places simply being ready. That's going to help FEMA.
For the next disaster. Yeah. If we rebuild this disaster,
the disasters aren't going to stop.
Prepared for the next disaster.
Right.
They'll be prepared, and then they'll save money in the long run. And then it's also, not to start talking about, tax write-offs and everything, but then even though it's an expensive product right now, it's a write-off for them when they get to put it back into the infrastructure of schools and communities, and then it reduces the carbon emissions and also the cost of electricity long-term. So if you look at solar, in a long-term sense, it's always smarter than producing carbon, through fossil fuels, because it's going to pay for itself. Even though it's you got to foot the bill up front. Long-term, it pays for itself. Right. And the people that have that backing, like FEMA, government-run programs, they can afford to do that type of thing, foot the bill up front for long-term return of investment. And they know that. They're not stupid. Same thing in the residential market. Yeah. If the customer can afford it, I don't want to go into financing either, because financing is not great right now. But if you can foot that bill up front, then long term, you're looking at a great return of investment, a green, clean source of energy that's going to keep giving, and it has great warranties, so it's guaranteed to last 25 years or however many years that warranty lasts. Pay attention to your warranties.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the only thing that's selling lithium too, is the fact that all those lithiums got those 10 years or those 12 years and 15 years. You better believe if that wasn't there, people would be like, no, thank you. You know what I mean? Yeah, because they'll replace it. And I mean, the warranties are really a game changer. It tells you how confident they are in their products. And yeah, for FEMA, this is just a smart business move. If the government says, hey, we can mitigate the level of disaster when a disaster does happen, because it is going to happen in all different forms, whether it be climate or weather or, anything can happen. FEMA's there. a freaking bomb can go off. Yeah, like some bad shit can go down. And if they look at the numbers and they go, well, we can mitigate how bad this disaster is by incorporating some renewable energy stuff or solar or any newer technology, absolutely they're going to do it. They're going to put that in there, and just so it's easier for them to clean up an area when it's the area's already got its own little infrastructure that's at last, and also all this stuff that we do. I've never put a generator in. I put a lot of generators in. But I've never done generators, and you have height like far as like flooding and all that stuff like that. But when a storm comes, the likelihood that some part of that your connection to that generator or whatever power source you have is going to be damaged, like especially a line running through a yard where a tree can just fall.
So if you can keep it all on site.
You can keep it on site. The
not
likelihood
having to send that power for long distances.
So in a disaster scenario, the likelihood that wires are just going to come from way over there to your house and make it here, probably not very good when trees are flying around and tornadoes happen. As where if you have power production on your site, you have a safer, you have more assurance of actually having power. So it really just makes more sense. And also, we are held to, I'm not saying that other guys aren't held to a high standard that do work, but solar is held to a much higher permitting standard than all of these other things.
Yeah,
what I'm saying by that,
what
I'm saying by that is FEMA is like, well, if those dudes installed 140 mile per hour rated panels, not only those are going to be there after the storm. Yeah. You know what I mean? So the qualifications that we have to meet with this stuff means that they are going to make it through the disaster. All the other stuff probably won't. Because how you go get gas when a hurricane comes? Sometimes you can't. How do you ensure that your public utility under the ground or through the aerial is going to be there? You can't. There's only one way to ensure that you're going to have all the stuff you need on your house when shit goes down, and that's if you do it.
Yeah.
So,
and solar is a resource that you just can't get rid of it. I mean, it would take a serious disaster, a hurricane. I mean, let's just look at the list here: tornadoes, hurricanes. Like, the storm's going to pass, and the aftermath is what we deal with mainly in Louisiana, of months or weeks without power. But that sun's shining right after, hot as hell, no AC,
right.
everything, you know. So it's a resource that's like you can't get rid of. You don't have to run to the gas station and grab it. You know what I mean? And that's the main thing that sells it. I think is the fact that it's a renewable resource that you can just keep gaining from every day the sun's out.
It's yours.
Yeah,
and it's yours. It's you on your site. There's no question. You can go out there and look at it. If your power line doesn't come, or your utility, Entergy or whatever says, "Oh, the power's not working," you can't go out there and be like, well, there's a problem right there. You don't know where the problem is sometimes. Sometimes it's like that, but not always. And so you got to rely on these other people to do this, as where if you are in a way making it, then you're good. I guarantee you, FEMA and our federal government, the track record of solar is what is selling them on that. Not just the production, the efficiency, the cost. I'm talking about the actual track record of what happens when solar panels, whether they be thermal hot water panels or PV panels mounted on a roof via a racking rail system, or even an incorporated system that is BIPV, that's building integrated. What I'm referring to when I say that track record is that they look at, hey, does this stuff get ripped off in a storm? And guess what? It doesn't.
Yeah.
Solar has done this. Happened right after Ida in New Orleans. People were shocked. I'm not shocked. You weren't shocked because we've been having to meet this requirement for 15, 20 years. But they were like, oh, man, people's roofs right next door to somebody else that has solar and their panels didn't get ripped off.
And not only
it was all fine.
They didn't get ripped off.
They
protected the roof under the panels.
And they were working.
Yeah.
So it's like FEMA looked at that and said, hold on a minute. This is a good idea. They've made such crazy requirements for us, which is good, that these things can make it through these storms. These things will be there. And like you said, the sun's going to come back up and they're going to work.
We're here to stay, guys.
Yeah.
Quick recap on what we've covered here today. Oxford PV, perovskite, new cells, new efficiency. Keep doing what you're doing. We appreciate you guys here on the bottom end of the residential market. ADT going out of business. Don't do what you're doing. We don't appreciate you here at the bottom end of the residential market. And FEMA.
I mean, FEMA's. I'm impressed. They have a bad track record.
Perovskite.
You know, not that long ago, like I thought that was like Pervo Kit. Yeah. I didn't even know how to say it. I was like, so I figured I kept seeing it all the time. I was like, man, I probably should learn how to pronounce this word. Yeah. So here we are, perovskite.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. This is Solar Slang, made possible by a company here in Mandeville, Louisiana called A to Z Solar Services, working today to build a better tomorrow. My name is Laith Hashemi.
I'm perovskite Mike.
See you next time.